Good evening. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr. It is time for another edition of the Wright Experience, and I'm so excited to be bringing you another episode. Actually, this is the 77th episode of our show. We're certainly excited about having our guest back tonight. This will be her third appearance tonight, but we're absolutely excited because she continues to do great things, and so we're absolutely elated to have her back and to hear the new things that she's got going on to help us all get better. Dr. Mary L. Young has enjoyed a successful career in public education for more than 25 years. She is a proven leader, having served as a school superintendent, an executive director, a school administrator, and teacher. Her driving vision and passion is to empower others to reach their purpose. Dr. Young has been featured in national and local webinars, podcasts, and conferences. Dr. Young's steadfast goal has always been to provide all students, regardless of their learning needs, race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status, with options and choices upon graduation. Through her experience and dedication, Dr. Young has developed a keen sense of effective leadership practices. She has had the opportunity to participate in the Harvard University's School Turnaround Leaders Institute, Harvard University's Urban School Leadership Center for Creative Leadership Institute, and the New Leaders DC School Leaders Network. In addition, she is a principal assessor for the National Association of Secondary Principals and a certified Gallup Strengths Finders coach. Most recently, she graduated from the esteemed AASA Urban Superintendent Academy. She has also served as an adjunct professor at Trinity University and the University of Phoenix, and as a consultant for the DC Public Charter School Board and the Office of State Superintendent of Education. In addition, she has held positions on the Board of Directors for Strategies to Empower People, called STEP, and the DC Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, ASCD. Dr. Young holds a Bachelor of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies, say that 3 times, William, from the University of South Carolina, and a Master's of Education in Reading from Howard University, and a Doctorate in Educational Administration and Policy from Howard University in Washington, D.C. Now, at this time, I welcome back to the Wright Experience my friend Dr. Mary L. Young, native South Carolinian.
Yes, greetings. How are you?
I am doing well, and welcome back. And I tell you what, every time I turn around, you continue to do new and amazing things. And so thank you for agreeing to come back on the show. You've got a brand new book that's out now. And want to hear you talk to us about that and just tell us all about it. It's called, let me see if I got this right, Act Like a Parent, Think Like a Superintendent. Is that right? Think Like a School Superintendent. Yeah.
Yes. And then the subtitle is Information They Will Not Tell You.
There you go. So tell us about this. What inspired you to write it, and what are some of the things? Because this book is aimed to help parents navigate the educational system. That's the way that I would describe it. I mean, it's got some really good. Yes, I read excerpts from it today. It's got some really good pointers in there about how parents can talk with educators and interact with educators, I think, to get ultimately what they need to help advocate for their children. Did I get that pretty accurate?
Yes. I do want to first just start and say congratulations on your 77th episode.
Thank you.
And I just, the fact that you started it in the middle of a pandemic and that you've just continued it, just speaks volumes to you and the work that you're doing to further education. So thank you.
Thank you very much for saying that. It's been it has been an amazing journey thus far. We started this thing in February of 2021, and as you well know, and It's been amazing to me to see how it's taken off, and we're just looking forward to continue to grow and prosper. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
No. I mean, it's a part of the work that we all do, you know.
Thank you.
So I will just say, so the book, Act Like a Parent, Think Like a School Superintendent. First, it's a catchy title, you know, so that's the other piece. One of the things I thought about, my earring dropped, but it's all right. You know, one of the things that I thought about when I wrote the title of the book was wanting to find something that would be, you know, catchy to parents, but then also something that would be true to parents. And so the evolution of this book, and so probably similar to you, just like many other educators, what tends to happen is we would have, and I would just say me, I would have, you know, I would have family, friends, they would have a problem with their child in school. They pick up the phone and they call you and they're like, I have this going on. What do I do? And so then I would start asking them questions about, you know, what happened with the teacher, what happened with the administrator, what happened with the other students. And then I would just give them a recommendation of how they would go about. And, you know, and although my brother's not on here, he really owes me, because there were times I would even write him and my sister a letter to the administrators because that's just, you know, the favor that we do for our loved ones.
That's right.
And so as a result of that, what I noticed was, while there were, you know, just very what I would call general challenges that the various parents would have, I found that from time to time, there would be some times where there would be moments where there would be some, I'll just say, behaviors that I probably wouldn't want to be proud of occurring in the educational field. I'll say it like that. And similar to all of the other fields. So the one thing that I would say is that just like every other field, there are people that are committed and they want to do the job and want to do it well. And you have some that don't. So it's not just education, it's other fields as well. But, you know, education is our area. And so what would happen is there would be questions that I would get from parents. And some of the questions would be questions that made me really question the leaders in the building, because, you know, I knew the law, I knew the compliance pieces, the protocols, you know, that although they may change from state to state or district to district, there's certain things that are just non-negotiables. And so when those questions came across my plate, I, you know, became a little concerned, because it was a matter of, from my perception, we had situations where parents were being taken advantage of because of their lack of knowledge. I'll just say it like that. And so when some of those various situations came, I would just ask the parents. And for me, the biggest thing was, because I'm an educator and it's not about turning against other educators, because I'm in the field of education. I mean, what do I look like, you know, turning on you? We're colleagues in this work. But what I wanted to do was arm parents with information so that they could better advocate for themselves and for their child. So it's not a matter of poking at education and saying this is what's right and this is what's wrong, but being able to say this is what's expected of whatever it is that we're looking at. And then based on that expectation, these are questions as a parent that you may want to have when you're looking to see, you know, and get an understanding of that area. And so that's sort of kind of how I crafted it, because it wasn't about trying to run anybody down. Sure. But yes, but a lot of it did derive from, so I'll just give you a prime example. You know, had a situation where I had a cousin who was sitting in an IEP meeting, and she is a social worker. So the parent was asking questions, and based on the questions that the parent had, she knew what the answers were when it came down to the assessments, but the administrator gave a different answer. And as she was about to say something, the administrator looked at her like, you better not open your mouth. What I say goes. And it was one of those situations where she, as an employee, you know, was quiet, but she was talking to me because for her, it was a matter of, I want to advocate for this parent. And I'll just say what it was. the parent asked when could they begin assessments on the child to ensure that their IEP was updated. And the principal told the parent, we can start in the new year, which would have been August. The social worker, who was my relative, she thought that since they were meeting in May, June, that why not assess that child now and over the summer, get the IEP in place so that when school starts in August, the child can get off to a great start with having updated goals and everyone's on the same page. Why wait until January? And then a lot of that won't get implemented and done and created and probably until, October, maybe even November, and so, but, she was quiet. And so for me, it was being able to talk to her, to tell her how, as an employee, she should do what she does. But then for me, it was about saying, now, had that parent perhaps had my book or had knowledge, that parent could have said, I understand you want to wait until August, but can we test the child now? Because if the parent had asked, can we test now? The administrator would have said yes, because when a parent asks, that's when, but because the parent didn't ask, the administrator took it upon themselves to determine when the assessments would occur. And it's possible that it was based upon the adult's schedule. And for me, that becomes the challenge, because it's not about the adults, it's about the children and making sure that they have what they need to be successful in whatever educational setting that they're in. So that's just a prime example of saying to a parent, there's certain things that you can ask for, there's certain things that you can say, there's certain things that you can do, and ask these questions, do these things to make sure that you're able to best advocate for your parent. For your child.
And advocacy doesn't have to be adversarial too. I think that's amazing that you're giving us a blueprint for how to engage with educators to ultimately get what we want for students. Because in education, as educators, not all, as you so eloquently stated, but most of us still also want what's best for your child. But sometimes we got to know, and then we'll get the ball rolling. So having written this book and having put it out, how can we help it get distributed? What do we need to do to make sure that our parents get an opportunity to take part in this blueprint to help us make better? Because really, it's better for all of us. If parents are more equipped on the process, then obviously it'll be better for most.
Yes. So this book is available on Amazon as well as Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
And so they can have it in the ebook as well as the paperback version.
All right. And so it's act like a parent, think like a school superintendent. How about that?
Yes, sir. Yes,
I tell you what, you be coming up with some titles, don't you, Dr. Young?
Yes, sir. Well, so, I was just, for me, it was about being able to say as a parent, how can I, being as a former school superintendent who sees the bridge from the beginning to the end, help you understand how all of the intricate parts in a school system work, which is why, so like in my book, and I have like my table of contents. So like in my book, I begin with my why, which I told you. Then, I talk about the art of war in school. Or some people may say, why is there war in school? But but a part of it is understanding, similar to like chess. How do you approach the school system, and how do you understand the ecosystem of the school system? And then I talk about the landscape. I talk about the players, the resources, and the powers that they have as a parent. And so it's not about saying to a parent that I'm trying to, as some people would say, I'm trying to get you. I'm trying to, arm the parents to come fight the school administrators. That's not what this book is about, but it's about helping parents to understand. Do you understand the roles of the central office? Do you understand the roles of the Board of Education? Do you understand the roles of the principal, the teachers? Even to the point where I've had situations where when I was a school superintendent, there would be a challenge within a school. And rather than that parent going to the teacher where the problem originated, they go to the board member. And it's saying, no, that's not where you go. You start with, and watch this, you start with the teacher, because what happens, it goes to the board member, it comes to the superintendent, who then goes to the principal and goes right back to the teacher, because that's where it originated, because that's where, and then sometimes when you get other people involved, sometimes it becomes something perhaps bigger than maybe what it should be. And then also the other thing I also tell parents is also, you also want to be mindful that you don't want to create a culture of, people hovering over, or made to feel like they're being hovered over, because now you as a parent has gone to the top, to the tippy top, and understanding those dynamics as well. And so that's something that I also talk about. I talk about, when he talks about the board, I talk about the limitations and what the board does and doesn't do, what the superintendent does and doesn't do. And then the other thing I talk about, just even when it comes down to the budget, I talk about, the business, the commissioners, the government officials, and almost like their span or scope of control. Because sometimes parents just assume, where's the money, or where's this, or where is that? But really needing to understand that, almost like, I would call them cogs. This is one piece, this is this piece, and this is this piece. And while you're focusing here, really helping them to understand that they all move in different ways and they all affect different things. And so sometimes it's not as easy as saying, implement something. And that's something that I also talk about in the book. And then also to parents on so I have a TikTok. My cousin, he helped me, but because he's one of those young, content creators. So I'm the fairy godmother of education. That's my coin,
Yeah,
to
I
be able to
saw
go
that.
in. And as a fairy godmother of education, what do? You make people's dreams come true. So I come in and I, give you some shoes or sprinkle some dust on you to make your magic happen. And so on TikTok, the fairy godmother of education, on Facebook, as well as Instagram, LinkedIn. And I think those are pretty much the social media. So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I post daily 1-minute videos. And when I say 1 minute, it is literally like 1 minute from start to finish. Sometimes it may go over a couple seconds, because what I do is I take information and I chunk it down into small pieces. I'll give you a prime example. One little tip that I give to parents is, and every day, let me back up and say, every day I have a different theme. And so like, so Monday, maybe beat your teacher Monday. And some people may say, you want them to beat your teacher? So then I start off with, like, the first week of school, I said in those videos, beat your teacher by calling and reaching out to your teacher, your child's teacher, before they reach out to you. Because at the beginning of the school year, teachers do call parents. And what I said to parents was, don't wait on your child's teacher to call you. You beat your child's teacher and you call them, or you beat your child's teacher by letting your child's teacher know how your child best learns. Or you beat your child's teacher by reaching out to your child's teacher to tell them how you need to now best be communicated with. Then you have the Tuesday with the Drama Train Tuesday, Word Up Wednesday. You have Thursday Blues, and you have Fix It Friday. And so every day I have a different theme. And I'll just give you something that I just most recently talked about. I talk with parents about self-care and helping them to understand that self-care matters. That's what I'm talking about now. And communication matters, and helping parents to understand how to best communicate. When I talk about just the Fix It Fridays, one of the other themes I talk about is helping parents to understand that there is a style and a way that you do things at home. And then there's a way that we do things at school. And sometimes that way we do things at school may not necessarily line up with the way you do things at home. So then I talk to them about the different types of styles, the authoritarian teacher, versus the permissive parent or whatever, and helping parents to understand that what goes on at school and the procedures and practices at school, helping your child to understand, follow those procedures and rules. And then what you do at home, if it's not the way that it's at school, it's all right. But helping your child to understand, wherever you are, act accordingly, and understanding that you don't do one and switch over and do the other. but you do it where it is. I'm just paraphrasing it, but and I talk about some of the different values, and I tell parents, another video that I did, you have values and norms in your home, and when you send your child to school, there may be other values and norms that other people teach their children, but helping your child to know that even at school, they should represent your norms and values that you taught them as a parent. And so, don't go to school and act like someone else's parent has allowed them to do. And if that's not the way you've allowed them to act at school or at home. And so, like I said, just different tips to parents to be able to really help them.
And what an amazing insight. And do you think, Dr. Young, I know you served just as I did. My youngest son was a student in the school district, in my first school district as a superintendent. And then I know you kind of had that same thing. So was this kind of birthed out of those experiences, or is this just Mary Young sharing some wisdom with everybody? Or how did this, how did you come to the conclusion that this book needed to be written? I think it's an absolutely amazing concept, and it's from the professional educator's perspective, which I think makes it so unique.
So it's a combination of all of those. Okay. But I think one of the pinnacle points that happened was my son was in a school district. I was not a superintendent at the time. And actually it was last school year when I was on leave. My son was in a particular school, and there was a situation, and I talk about it in the book, between he and a teacher, where the teacher instructed my son to do something she wanted him to do. But what happened was, my son, in the age of me trying to empower him to be an advocate and self-advocate for himself, being, a high school student, he basically informed the teacher that the information that she had provided to him wasn't exactly correct. Okay. Which did not rub well with her. And so she called me, and, she was upset and basically told me what happened. And so when my son came home, we talked about it. And so that's when I began thinking about the Sun Young, the art of war, and how he has these various principles. And his book, The Art of War, the original book, The Art of War. And I began talking to my son about, when do you engage people? When do you not engage people? When is the time when you should speak? What are some of the things you should say? How do you disarm someone? How do you, throw gas on a fire? And some people may say, why did you have this conversation with your son? Because I needed him to know that as a young man, while he is empowered, it's not just about the empowerment, but it's about how you say and what you say and how you do it. And so then, the other thing he said was, but I was right. The teacher basically said that, I was not supposed to do something, and I was telling her what the rules were, but she didn't want to hear me. And so I said to him, and in a book, and I basically just said, based on everything my son had stated and everything that the teacher had stated, my son was actually in the right. Sure. Because the teacher actually told me the same thing that my son pretty much said. But it was at the end of the school year. And one of the things I said to my son was, that's another part of the art of war. It's the end of the school year. Is it worth the energy and the effort and the time to engage this teacher over this situation? Because it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't about your grades. It wasn't about your behavior. So did we really want to go down that route? And so my son, he was a little upset because he said, but she was wrong. And I said, I get it. And so then I began talking to him. So then I shared with him the book, The Art of War. And then I shared with him some principles from The Art of War. And then I told him to come and talk to me about it. And that's when he began to, say, wow, okay, so she was this. And he identified who the teacher was. He identified who he was. He identified the rule and how to play that game. And some people may say play a game, but it really was play that game, because it was a script and a process that was needed that he didn't realize he needed to implement to diffuse the information in order to get a win. And so sometimes people think that they're getting a win, which was what I was telling him, was giving her a win by not engaging her allowed you to also win because it was the end of the year and it really wasn't worth the effort to prove that she was wrong, because it, and that's just one example of just, talking about with parents. And so at the end of the book, when I talk about how do I empower parents, and so in the spirit of honoring my mother, who would always tell me these little wives' tales. In the back of the book, I probably have, I don't know, between 15 to 18 different wives' tales that my mother would tell me. And I take those wives' tales and I make them relatable to parents so that they understand, what does this mean to you as a parent? So one wives' tales I talk to parents about in the book is, don't throw the baby out the bathwater. Another one my mom would say is, Rolling Stones don't gather no moss. Just all those little Southern, wives' tales that are said. Don't let your right hand know what your left hand know. And I break it down and I help parents to really understand, how do I engage my child's school to ensure that, I get a win? How do I help my child? And, even when it comes down to, and I talk about, and I'll go back to just the video, I remember just very vaguely, one of my most recent clips that I shared with parents, because this is now time for parents to have conferences with their teachers. And one of the things I said to a parent was, when you're in a meeting with your child's teacher, one tip was, before the meeting, write down all the questions you want to ask. Because many times you go to a meeting and then they leave, you're like, man, I forgot to ask them that question. Well, to help you, write all your questions down. So when you get there, you don't have to forget, because you have them all written down and you're prepared for the meeting. Some parents may not even realize, oh, I have to prepare for the meeting. Yes, if you really want to get your questions answered and not forget. Another tip that I actually had for parents was also letting them know that if you're in the meeting and the teacher asks you a question and you don't know the answer, it's all right to say, I don't know, and I'll get back to you. That doesn't minimize you as a parent. That just says that you're not aware of the information or the answer, but you will investigate it and get back to them so that they can have what they need. And it doesn't mean that you're less knowledgeable. It's not a challenge to you as a parent. You're not threatened, but it just also gives you time to really think about what you believe is or should be the best thing for your child. And so those are just examples of just some of the things that I do that parents don't even realize that they have the right to ask, to be able to help advocate for their child.
And it certainly shows the humanistic side of the parent, and it shows it helps with the non-adversarial approach that we're trying to create here, because when we come in and we're at each other's throats, it doesn't do anybody any good. So I think that's amazing that you are helping us to provide that insight. And so going back to something that you that you mentioned over in there. So if I am seeking to be an advocate for my child, one of the things that you said that was so key is I have to make sure that I'm going in there with the right mindset. I mean, that's kind of the way that you approached it. That you're not saying don't go. You're not saying don't get involved. You're not saying don't advocate. And my grandmama, who's now deceased, reminded me, she used to say all the time, let grown folks handle grown folks' business. So sometimes children have to be taught, yes, we are supposed to stand up for ourselves. Yes, we are supposed to advocate for ourselves. But sometimes you got to let mama handle it, or talk to mama about it and help you work through it. So key advice, because nowadays we're quick, because of the way society is set up, in my opinion, we're really quick to just, well, you know what, let me go out there and deal with this situation. Sometimes we aren't armed with the facts, and sometimes we are, and then that puts everybody in an adversarial situation. So Dr. Young, I'm so proud of you, and so immensely proud that you're continuing to challenge us in the field. You wrote the faith book first, and now we're doing educational advice and tips and so forth to to communities to help us all get better. Because as educators, we also need to read your book so we can be better prepared to have these parent conferences. Parents need to understand and know that we as educators, we're not out to get your child. We're not, most of us now. We've got some folks that do some crazy stuff just about every day, but that's not what we do normally. And we as educators also need to understand that parents just want what's best for their children. You know, they're not out to get us either. And I think your book goes a long way in helping us understand and realize that that we can reach a happy medium to get those results in place. So just as proud of you as I can be to continue to reinvent yourself and help us to reinvent ourselves. And so as we're getting close to the end here, Dr. Young, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience at this point that I failed to mention?
Yes. So one point that I will say is if you are a school leader,
okay,
this would be a great Title I, because I know the codes as well, to be able to use, to be able to provide books to your parents to help arm parents when it comes down to understanding the lingo, the inner workings of the school in the school district. This would be great when it comes down to parent liaisons, having professional developments. So some school districts have parent universities, some have parent night. This would be great to be able to maybe, have a book study, to be able to talk to parents, maybe take pieces out to really say, well, this is what's going on. Do you parents feel this way? What are some additional ways we can engage you as parents to be able to make sure we're meeting you where you are? And so that would be one thing that I would say between just the continuation of it, because there's definitely a disconnect, but the disconnect is not because parents don't want what's best for their child. They just don't know the route. And they don't know the jargon of education. Similar to us, if I were to go to a doctor and the doctor's using these 15, 20 syllable words, I don't know what it means. And so I just, in ignorance, I can do one or two things. I can even ask my doctor, what does it mean? Look it up on Google, or just sit there and accept what they have to say. And sometimes parents, because we are the professionals, just accept what we are saying, but really don't understand what it is that they're agreeing to. And so a part of it is helping parents to say, it's all right to ask. It doesn't make you look, unintelligent, because no one knows everything. And it's all right to be able to say it, but it's about how you go about saying it and engaging the school leaders. Because here I go, you're holding them accountable, but they're also holding you accountable. And as the parent, you are your child's first teacher. And so a part of it is because the school knows that the goal is the school does want to involve you as a parent. They want to engage you as a parent. And sometimes they may not know how. And so it's really a communication disconnect that I see a lot between the school and the home as well. And so that's something that I would say. The other thing that I would also add is that starting in December next month, I was able to secure a slot in the New York Post. Yes, the New York Post, where I will have an advice column. So it will be similar to like the Dear Abby, but it's going to be Dear Fairy Godmother of Education.
Okay.
And it will run starting next month in December, New York Post, and it will run for the entire 2023, once a month, probably on a Saturday or Sunday, the first or second Saturday of the month. It will be a question that will be asked from a parent, and I will answer it to help the parent just really get a better understanding of how they should go about, maneuvering the landscape and understanding the factors that they need to consider. And I know we're at a close, but like one example that I gave, and this is something that just comes back from one of my TikTok videos that I posted. Sometimes parents will say, well, I don't want to be bothered with the school system. And so, on one side you have, the the survey that's done and the climate survey in the school district saying parents aren't involved. Whereas the parents are saying, well, we are involved. We helped our child with homework. We are involved. We listened to your robocall that was sent home. And the school is like, you're not involved. But does the school understand the way that they believe they want parents to be involved may not be the same thing that parents are saying and doing that's involved. And so once again, communication, what does that mean on both sides? And so saying to parents, what does that involvement look like, sound like, feel like, so that everyone is on the same path. And then also as a school district, understanding the biases, explicit biases, implicit biases that you may have. Also understanding that parent may or may not have had a great, time when they were a student. And so perhaps they may still have some PTSD, some trauma from their childhood, and we don't even know any of those things, right. But, if they didn't have a great educational experience, they're not going to want to be involved. And so when you get to know who your parents are, understanding, where they're coming from, it helps you to better be able to engage your parent. And then the other thing that I would say is that many times school districts they'll send out letters every day. And this was something that this past Saturday I presented to a group of district leaders in Africa. In sub-Sahara Africa. I was fortunate enough to be able to present, for the first time to them. And, and they didn't, and I told them communication is not engagement. And many times school districts will send out 1,000 phone calls, 1,000 letters, 1,000 handbooks and say, we engage parents. No, you just gave them a bunch of information. You didn't engage them. Did they read it? Did they understand it? As a result of the information, was there, a response? And so, just a lot of just different pieces, just even to the point of, sending home at the beginning of the school year, and I've done it, but in hindsight, it's like, oh, that I shouldn't have done it. At the beginning of the school year, say you have a child in elementary, middle, and high school, you send home that big, thick 100-page handbook. And then you say to the students, tell your parent to sign this and send it the next day. Well, if you send home a 100-page handbook, what's the chances the parent is going to be able to read a whole handbook? Do you really want the parent to read it? Or do you just want them to sign saying that they saw it? Like, what do you really want them to do? Right. So they sign it and send it. And then when something happens, they were like, well, you signed this paper saying that you understood, but you only gave them one night to read a 100-page book. After they got home from work with their children, after they cooked dinner, after they helped with homework and signed all the emergency forms, because all of those things are going on. So is it realistic what we ask parents to do? And then if you have a child that's elementary, middle, and high school, that's 300 pages. You already know they're not going to read that. So it's just one of those things where, are we really wanting to engage, or are we just saying we just want them to just sign off? And like, what does real engagement look like? And what message are we sending parents when we do those things? And it's like, I know we want the signed form back, but what does that look like? Maybe have a night where we say to parents, this is this book, maybe take 2 or 3 days. And then maybe on the third night, we'll have a podcast. And we'll review it. And if you have any questions, I'll answer it. Because then parents understand what's in the book, and then they can help reinforce what's in the book with their child. And then they can also be a better advocate to help you as a school system. So, and that's all just the big piece and the premise of the book, and what I'm doing to really just help to bridge the gap between what's going on at home and what's going at school. And it's not intentional, but there's a disconnect. And so how do we break down that disconnect to make sure that there's a meaningful connection?
Because as leaders, we've got to check ourselves and make sure that we're doing stuff that makes sense. And
yes,
that is certainly a mouthful and all of that. And we spend time, even back to my days as a high school principal, where I would say to us, we're having an IEP meeting, we're describing policy X or whatever it is that we're doing. And because I did something before education, sometimes I'd stop us right in the middle and say, okay, let me tell you what that really means, mom and dad, because people need to hear, we're bad about or good about, however you want to say it, we're giving acronyms and philosophies and pedagogy and all of that stuff, which really doesn't mean a whole lot to the average parent. But if we talk to them in common sense language, and that's kind of what I hear you saying, putting
Yes.
it, meeting them where they are, so that that we can work collectively to help kids get better. That's so
If
amazing.
we really want parents involved, we
That's
have
right.
to meet them where they are.
Right.
And we
That's,
can't use the jargon. We have to use language that they can understand, they can relate to
that's
be
right.
able to bring them on board and not make them feel
That's
bad
right.
about not knowing.
That's right. Well, Dr. Young, I'm certainly appreciative of you being here. And if you hold on with me for a minute, we'll come back and close out the show.
Thank you.
My guest on December 1st, 2022 will be Dr. Amanda Patterson. Dr. Patterson works with HMH Publishing, and she is a guru when it comes to assessing student data and making sure that students get what they need through the assessment of accountability data. One thing about accountability data all across the United States, it's ever changing. Sometimes you need folks to, just as we're talking about tonight, to take data and make sense of it so that we all can understand, first of all, what we're looking at, and then how to move forward. And so Dr. Amanda Patterson is one of the best I've ever seen at doing that. And we'll have her aboard on December 1st, 2022. We're going to take next week off. Next Thursday, of course, is Thanksgiving. And so certainly want to have space and time for me to enjoy my family, but also for you to do the same. And so my wish for all of you is to have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. And as I told my staff today and yesterday and for the last few days, please, by all means, take time to be safe, love your loved ones, but also carve out some time for you just to make sure that you are replenishing and retooling yourselves so that you can better serve those that you do. For those of you that are in educational leadership, those of you that are teachers, but also no matter what walk of life you do, you got to retool yourself in order to help others. And so please take that advice over the Thanksgiving holidays to make sure that you do just that. And Dr. Young, thank you so very, very much for agreeing to come on here. We kind of pulled this together at the last minute. And once I found out that you were doing that amazing work and I got this amazing material out here, I wanted to get you right back up here as soon as we can.
Thank you. If I could add one more thing, they could also reach me on I have a website.
Okay.
And my website is my name, www.marielyoung.com.
There we go. Hey, y'all got
marielyoung.com.
marielyoung.com. So we'll put that in the Twitter feed that goes out to support this post when we put that out as well. Thank you to the Wright Experience audience. Thank you very much for watching, and good evening.